Roisin, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
For context, for anyone who doesn't know, I hound Roisin all the time to do stuff like this, whether it's to work with clients on my coaching program, which obviously you help them with their relationship with food, and I learned a lot from you in that time as well, which is great, and that's why I keep trying to get you onto things like this and pestering you, because I think the message that you have is really important, and it's something that I see come up a lot with clients that I'm coaching. So tell us, how did you get here? Why do you have such a good knowledge around this topic, and what is this topic?
So I guess I started when I started with my struggles with food back in my college days. I studied performing arts, dance, so there was a lot of pressure on our bodies. There was a lot of comments being made that I wasn't prepared for going in. I was only like 19, and just grew to develop quite a disordered eating pattern with my life, and it got to the point where I was like hated myself, lost a huge amount of weight, was miserable, wasn't living life anymore, and was lucky enough to have caught it myself and been like, no, something's not right here. I don't want to continue down this path anymore, and managed to like find help and help myself, especially through COVID. I actually found it really beneficial. It was a good time to like work on it and slow down and learn how to go back to healthy eating patterns and a healthy relationship with my body, with food, with life again, and live life again. So I guess that's...
For someone who is oblivious to what disordered eating is, can you explain to us what it is in your opinion?
Yeah, I guess I would consider it when someone really has a struggle with their eating habits and their patterns of eating, or a struggle, and daily eating and thinking about food, preoccupation with food and just thinking about food all the time, and it leads to like a poor relationship with their body, or it can be the other way around. Maybe you start with a poor relationship with your body and that's where it comes from, but yeah, it's mostly down to the eating habits, I think, anyways.
And how was that affecting you at the time?
It was awful. Like, all I could think about was food. It was like, it consumed my every thought. Like, even at night time, I would lie down and all I'd think about was what I was almost going to restrict the next day. And it just became all I could think about, all I could talk about. And what I struggled with was orthorexia. So it was an obsession with like clean eating and knowing what was in the food. And it was almost like I thought I was healthier than everybody else, but obviously I was unhealthier than everybody else. It's slippery, it's a dangerous one, but it was just all I could think about, and I became very angry, very miserable, very, I suppose, exhausted because I wasn't eating, I was restricting, and I just would say I just was not living life. Yeah.
And you said that this, like, you didn't have this your whole life. This started to come up when you were 19, and contribution to that was when you were in the dance industry. Tell me a little bit about that. Yeah.
So I was like, I loved food as a child. Like, food, I was known, like, you know, in your family, like, oh, she loves her food. That was me. Loved food. Went over and like, I did dance because I loved it and it was a hobby, and decided to just keep going because I was loving it, having a great time doing it. And then when I went, it was like, it's a different world when you go to study it and go into it as a career. And I think a lot more is coming out. Like, you know, you see things coming out about Hollywood and stuff now, and how performing life in general is just really tough, and it can be a very toxic environment if you're not prepared for it, and you're young and you're impressionable and you don't understand nutrition, you don't understand that you should only take advice from people who have like qualifications and know what they're talking about. Like, a lot of dance teachers don't have nutrition qualifications and shouldn't be given advice.
And were they giving you advice?
Yeah, they were giving us a lot of advice and like stupid advice, like training advice, like rolling out your thighs would get rid of any excess muscle, because we didn't want bulky thighs, we wanted like lean thighs. Put on like thick tracksuits and like sprint up and down. This was advice that I was given and I took because I was only 19 and I knew no different, and we're like, these were the people that I was looking up to, so if they said it, I'd go and do it. And Yeah, I don't know about the food. Did they give us nutrition advice? There was definitely, well, yeah, they suppose they did. Like, we were told not to go home and eat Easter eggs at Easter, and like not to go mad at Christmas because, come on, we're performers now. We have to. It was just a constant, like, no matter what you were doing, it had to revolve around food, and you almost then were very conscious about what you were having for lunch in the day, and then you'd be comparing your lunches, and because we were all 19 and we were all in this environment, we were all started talking about it, and we were all obsessed with each other's lunches and what everyone was eating. And you know, when you see the people that were getting praised for being smaller, what are they eating? And it was just so, it was toxic because you were so young and impressionable.
And do you think that, like, how long did that go on for before you realised that, okay, I'm actually under eating here, I'm starving myself, or did you not notice?
Didn't notice when I was over in college, didn't notice throughout those years. I kind of thought I was healthier than everyone else and looked down my nose at everyone thinking, oh my God, like, because I guess from being in dance as well, very disciplined, so I would be able to bring, you know, this is such one of those things that we talk about now, is like bringing my Tupperware when we were eating all together, and like for dinner or something, I'd bring my Tupperware with my own food. And I would look down my nose at everyone else and think I was above everyone else because I wasn't eating what they were eating. And I was able to not eat it or whatever, even though it was killing me inside. Or I'd like, it was killing me. And it was, I didn't realise until I'd got home and I was away from that environment. So a year or so after when I came back, it wasn't until then that I was like, Jesus, I'm miserable. Like. And
did your family notice and stuff like that you were underweight, that you weren't fueling yourself, that you weren't eating? Did they?
They didn't notice at first, I don't think, because when I was when I went over to do dance like full time, when I would come home, I probably had lost a little bit of weight anyways, because I was like moving so much, and I like even when I was eating. When I wasn't struggling with food, I was moving so much. I probably did lean out a little bit, and I did get comments like, "Oh my gosh, you look amazing!" Like, and you know, people were like, "You know, you've lost like all this," like, you know. So I probably was. It was probably people just thought, "Oh God, yeah, like she's a dancer, she's leaned out." Like they didn't think anything of it for a while. But it was only when I started, like, I remember one time I had a banana. And I ate half of it, and it was my mum was there, and I was like, I can't eat the full banana. It doesn't fit into my calories. And at that point, she was kind of like, in what world is eating half a banana healthier than eating a whole banana? Like, that was starting to, like, it was little comments I was starting to make. Or we'd go out for food, and I'd be in an awful state, and the waiter couldn't take my order for ages because I was just panicking, look at the menu, trying to figure out what was the cleanest, what dish would have the most ingredients that I would know and understand, and know, like, you know, does that make sense? Like the cleanest, I suppose. Just that I could see all the clear ingredients, and it was just I would have myself in a panic. We'd have to send the waiter away, and then he'd come back and send him away again, or I'd send it back then. And it was like stuff like that I previously would have been like, oh, I'll have this, and this, please. That I was they started to notice. I think you notice when people start commenting on food a lot, and you can see how much they're like thinking about food, whereas I wouldn't really have thought about it unless I was ready for a meal before, whereas they were noticing that it was like becoming a full-time thing. Yeah, it was proper, you were literally panicking over ordering something off the menu. Yeah, what rice to get. Yeah, which was like the fried rice, the jasmine rice. You know, I remember one time I was like, I just was in an awful state, which one was cooked in the most oil and stuff, like it was... Did you notice that? I know a message that you give out as well, and I remember you giving out to my clients before, is the dangers of commenting on people's bodies. Did you find when people were, you know, complimenting you for looking thinner, did that contribute to you even pushing that even further? Oh God, yeah. Felt great. Felt great because I was always like small, but I was never like thin. I don't know. No, maybe not. Maybe that's not the right way of saying it. But I always wanted to be thinner, but it never like consumed me. I was never like desperate for it. Just like, you know, normal person kind of wanted, like, I would have loved abs or whatever, you know. So when they started saying these things, it was like, oh my God, like it's possible for me. Like it definitely pushed it further. Like I wanted more. But I never saw it. I never really saw my own weight loss ever, like, because I was so angry and hated myself, and miserable. Every time I looked in the mirror, it was just equally as hateful. That I actually never saw my weight loss until I look back now and look at the photos. I'm like, oh my God, I was absolutely tiny. Like dangerously tiny. But I wouldn't have seen it then at all. I just hated myself. Yeah.
Do you think we still have that in society where people relate, skinnier and thinner with being healthy?
Yes. Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Like weight loss is healthy. I don't think we prioritize health half as much as we should. Even now, I feel like so much is about fat loss. And I get it, that is a lot of people's goals, and maybe it is healthy for them to do that, but it's not everybody's goals, and it doesn't equal health. Yeah. And that's something that I've had to learn is like, one thing I've only learned recently, like really recently, is that the low calorie options aren't always even the healthier options. I think we associate the no fat and the 0% and the low anything is like, well, that's the healthy one. It's okay, it's healthy. Like I wouldn't don't feel guilty eating this, it's healthy. Where it's like, it might not be for everyone, it might not be the healthier option. And I do think that, like you were saying before, like comments as well are so dangerous. Like there's a lot of, God, you look great, and you don't know what they're going through. You don't know whether they've lost weight because they're grieving lately, or they're anxious and they're really struggling with their anxiety, or they're stressed. They're so stressed out of their minds that like eating has been the least of their concerns. Like I feel we thrive off people commenting these, and then that's only made worse with like social media and pictures and.
I'll tell you a story now, and I was so mad at myself for doing it, right, when in relation to commenting on bodies, right. So I had a client about 2 or 3 years ago, and she's overweight, and I seen her maybe a few months ago, and she was really thin. And I said, "Oh, you look great. You must be working hard with your training and so on and so forth." And then we got into conversation, and it was only after getting into conversation that she started speaking to me, and she was saying things like, "Oh, I'm afraid to change up the meals that I have in case I put back on the weight and stuff like that." And then it was like red flags in my head. Is this some elements of disordered eating, that she's sticking to the same meals every day and she's afraid to change it up in case she gains weight? And then I was like, I shouldn't have commented on her body and said that she looks great, because actually she's not in a mental state where she's healthy or happy. And like I think even someone who like is in and around that world can make them mistakes. So like the general public wouldn't know any different in terms of, they're just going to be like, pass a comment, "Oh, you look good," even though, like you said,
it's so hard not to. And like no one that ever said it to me had any bad intentions or was like, "Oh yeah, getting skinny, like well done." Like they only meant well, and we're so used to saying like, "Oh my God, you look great," like you must have, and I'd do it still, and like I'm the biggest preacher of, "Oh, don't comment on people's bodies," but I'll go ahead and do it,
happens,
without even realising it. And
it was another one. Even I had a close relative who was really, really sick in terms of addiction, and she was going around, and everyone was, because she lost a lot of weight, and everyone was going around, "Oh, you look great. And in the back of my head was like, she's not great. She's very, very sick."
Yeah, she couldn't be further from great.
Yeah. So like it's I think it's something that we need to, the message needs to be pushed out a little bit more. But it's hard for people who aren't from that world, or don't really have a clue in terms of body image and nutrition and stuff like that. They do only have good intentions when they're saying them things.
Yeah.
And that's why I think that is a really good message to bring out. Also, when you said that probably your disordered eating behaviours were kind of at its worst and your family started to notice, was there any kind of support systems that they knew about or you knew about that could kind of help you to revert back to a healthier way of living in terms of your nutrition?
At the time, no. I had no idea. I had no idea where to go, what to do. They didn't have any clue what to do.
Did you even know that you had a problem?
No, not for a long time. There was a turning point for me.
What was the turning point?
It was when I was out eating with my we hadn't planned to go out and eat. We were out, and then it was like, "Will we pop in here?" Which usually would have been like, "Oh my gosh, like treat, how exciting!" And I was like, "Oh my God!" I was sent into this like spiral of, "What did I get? I didn't plan this. Like I have my meal prepped at home, or whatever," and it was just a horrific experience where I think it was like Wagamama's, which was like my favorite place, and I love noodles and I love rice, and I got these like lettuce wraps, and like they're fine, they're nice, whatever, but like I wouldn't recommend them. They're not what I'd ever want to get.
I'm not going to order.
No, don't. Not worth it. And I remember being like, this is now miserable. And I got home and I was going to bed, and I like looked at myself in the mirror, and I just felt this like rage come over me, and I was like, I hate myself. I was like, I am restricting, I'm miserable. I had a terrible night out eating, and I still hate how I look. I hate every moment of it. I was like, I just was like, I can't do this anymore. Like I'm so unhappy. And I did kind of know, right, something's not right. Something's not right. This is not how I used to be. This is not what I want to be. Like, how come everyone else can go out and eat something and not even think twice about it? Like, why me? Why is this happening? So that was like the turning point. And I did say it to my mum, and we were so lost. I think even like that was only a few years ago, and it wasn't that known or anything. I feel like it has changed a good bit now since then, but I or maybe I'm just seeing it more now that I've been through it. Yeah.
Like you would be very aware of it, and I'd be very aware of it from being around you as well. Whereas some people might be going through it now and they don't even have a clue what sort of
hadn't a clue. And like I was like, maybe a nutritionist. That's what I need. Like I need to know exactly what I should be eating. And then they sent me somewhere else, and then one of them over the phone was like, oh yeah, it sounds like you have orthorexia, and I like, and then it just made me feel worse, and like I was just getting awful recommendations, advice. I went to therapy, and I just had a bad experience there. It wasn't, but like that might work for someone else. Like I just couldn't seem to find anything to help. And then I went to an online coach, which is what I wouldn't recommend anyone to do if they are struggling. I mean, maybe now that like it depends who, like online coaches are getting better, like yourself, you're so much more aware of like, and you're so conscious of people's eating habits, whereas a lot of them aren't like that, and like, here's your calories, off you go, just stick to a deficit.
Yeah. And even then, if someone comes to me with that, I'm looking to refer out.
Yeah, exactly. And I was lucky that she had qualifications and all that stuff, and she had been very aware of disordered eating, and was amazing and changed my life, and I'm very grateful, and I just got so lucky that she was the one I decided to go to. Just, I think I found her on Instagram or something.
So what were the behaviours and actions and strategies that you put in place in order to kind of get you on the road to recovery?
Well, she was asking me like what I wanted, and at the time I was like, I think from Instagram, I was obsessed with like bodybuilders' bodies, and I was like, oh my gosh, I would love to look like that. Yeah. Thankfully, I never like entered any of those competitions or anything, because I think that would have made it worse. But
that was worse,
yeah, way worse. But I told her I wanted to build muscle, and I had to tell her exactly what I was eating at the time, and she was like, you cannot build muscle unless you start eating more. Like, it's just like, you cannot get the body that you're saying you want if you're not eating
like a child.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's like, you can't. And she's like, I can't keep working with you if you keep eating like this, whatever. We just won't get the results. So I had to eat more, and then seen the results I want, and realized that eating more was not putting on it wasn't doing what I feared it would do. I wasn't just suddenly becoming huge or anything like I'd made up in my head. Like, I was training, and I was using it as fuel, and I started to see food as fuel, and that I needed it, and how my life changed as well. Like, as soon as I started eating more, I was like, oh my God, like I felt awake again. I think I was in like this fog because I was barely eating, and like so tired all the time. And I was doing mad things. Yeah, I was doing mad things. Like, I was going up to the gym at like 6 a.m. before work. And like, I don't think I was really, you can't even sleep properly when you're not eating, like, right? Like, I wouldn't even be sleeping. Like, it was, I don't know how I was functioning. Like, I really don't know how I was moving through. I started eating, and I had all this energy, and I was like, oh my God, this is amazing.
But it's probably the scariest thing to do when you're kind of in that place where, you know, you've been afraid to consume excess calories for so long.
Yes,
to then do that step.
Yeah, it's terrifying. It is terrifying, and I get it. Like, when people are like, I remember when I was working with you, and like some of the clients would be terrified or that you'd set them a calorie goal, and they'd be trying to eat under it. And I get it. That's how we've been raised, is like, you know, moment on the lips, lifetime on the hips, all that crap is like ingrained in us. And like, now we have a culture where we're all like going to the gym, and everyone wants to build muscle, and it's just like, it's trying to get rid of that fear of food, because that's what's going to get us what we want.
Do you think as a society that we're turning in that direction where it's not about being thin and being skinny is healthy anymore?
I think so. I think we still have a long way to go, and there's a lot of people that still aren't like that.
Yeah.
Or there's a lot of, when I tell people I go to the gym and stuff, I hear a lot of, I wouldn't want to become like bulky. Yeah. And you know, like it's so hard. Like I'd love to be bulky.
The cheeky you.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like me picking up a pair of boxing gloves and being like, I don't want to be like Muhammad Ali.
Yeah, exactly. I don't want to be too good.
You have to train, yeah.
Exactly, yeah. And it is this fear of growing muscle that's going to make us like huge. But I think a lot of girls especially are starting to want to become, starting to come away from wanting to be thin and tiny and as small as humanly possible to being growing muscle and being strong. And it makes us feel strong mentally as well as physically. Like it's the best feeling.
So resistance training and building muscle really contributed to you getting out of that disordered eating behavior?
Yeah, it helped me so much. And it helped me with my food as well, because it was like, I need to fuel this. Yeah. I need to fuel this, otherwise it's pointless me being here. Because I went to the gym for so long before that, and again, seen no results, stood in the mirror and was like, why am I doing all this? Like, just felt this anger. So realizing that food is needed for that is it's huge.
Tell me a little bit about how you would go about helping someone to improve their relationship with food, because obviously your relationship with food is a huge part of this as well. So what are some of the characteristics of someone who has a poor relationship with food, and then what are some things that you can do to improve your relationship with food?
I would say one thing that really helped me was not calling food good and bad. Like that was the main thing for me, I think, was constantly being like, oh my God, I've had such a bad day, or I ate so bad today. And one thing the online coach that I worked with was like, why was it bad though? Why is that food bad for you? Like, what has it done to you? Did it hurt you in any way or whatever? And I really started to like, it's just food, and realizing that some are just more nutritious and some I just make me happier, and knowing what you need in that moment. And social health, that was the other thing I was thinking of, social health. I never even considered this. I just would have thought, it was just black and white, was going out and eating food was bad. That is bad, and you've messed up there. Whereas social health is like super important. It's so important, like going and being with friends, family, and if that means having some pancakes at brunch, or that means going out and having a nice meal and a few drinks. I love a drink, and I'd stop drinking and everything, and I love going for a drink now. Like, I've gone off now. I was thinking about drink there. And that's so socially important, and it's important to not miss out on that for food, because that's life. You know, like that is living life.
Yeah, you were literally just thinking about food as either healthy or not healthy, instead of okay, food could be alright, nourishment, fuel, enjoyment with friends and family, like celebrations, all the
celebrations, eating birthday cake on your birthday or someone else's birthday. Like there's no better feeling. Yeah.
And you also spoke there about that kind of black or white thinking in terms of nutrition. That's obviously a big part of it as well. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think, I've only recently, like only a few weeks ago, I deleted my FitnessPal. And like, although I was saying for so long that I'm recovered, I am in a great place, great relationship with food, I still couldn't get rid of that app. I just couldn't get rid of it. I just was terrified to delete the app, and I would use it often. And even when I was like, no, I know I'd eat not that I'd eat the same meals every day, but I'm pretty like consistent, like with my meals and all. But I'd still log it, and it would still make me restrict certain foods. Like I'd still be like, right, okay, I've reached my calories today, so I can't have any more chocolate. And oh my God, all I could think about was chocolate. And all I wanted was like, how much more could I squeeze in? What if I had half, like a Freddo? Could I be able to get that into my... And it was just like, I wasn't even enjoying the chocolate anymore. It was just, what could I get into it? What could I get into my calories? And it was only recently that I deleted it, and it's changed everything for me. And I can finally... Now, I do think it's a great tool. I think it's an amazing tool.
Depends on the person.
Yeah, exactly. And like for a temporary time, and it helped me learn so much about different foods. And it's something that I am generally interested in as well, because I love the gym, I love health, well-being. Like I love learning all that. And it was great, and it had its moment. But it was at the point where I was like, I know I don't need this. Like I know what I'm doing. And now I can actually like listen to my body again, and I might not want chocolate. For the first time ever, I'm like, do I actually want that chocolate? Like, maybe not. Like, for the first time ever, I'd say, since I was like 19, that I wasn't just trying to squeeze in as much chocolate.
And that was a big part of your recovery as well, like trusting yourself and not using calorie counting tools and stuff like that.
Yeah, and like listening to your body, being mindful. That was really helpful, was like not being distracted while eating. Like I always take my food, because sometimes people try and talk to me while I eat, and I hate that, because then I'm just like talking and eating and I'm like, oh no, now it's gone and I don't even remember eating it. I like to go and sit with my food. And like little things like just saying like I'm not like overly religious or anything, but just saying like thank you for your food before you eat it, and just being aware that it's there. Eating slowly, like chewing your food properly, noticing the tastes, the textures and all like that really helped me. Yeah, and just being like aware of what you actually want in that moment. Like, do I want this, or am I just, it's just there, you know, or am I just eating it because there's chocolate there, and or am I saying that I can't have chocolate and that's why I want chocolate? It's like trying to like sit with yourself and understand what's going on. It takes time, and I found COVID so great for that. Or sorry, like the COVID time, the quarantine time was like a time that I could actually slow down, and I wasn't working where I could actually work on this. So it's hard when you're in the rush of everyday life. But yeah, it's worth doing. It's worth taking the time.
Was another thing that you implemented was stepping away from scale weight and stuff like that? I presume, obviously, when you were in your disordered eating behaviours, probably weighing yourself regularly was one of the characteristics of that. Yeah,
it was. And it was for a negative reason. And I know people, I've heard like two sides of this, where some people are like, throw out the scale, you do not need it, don't look at it, it's awful. Whereas I found, not every day, but I found it helped me learn and understand. So like one thing that I would have been terrified was getting a takeaway, that I'd gain so much weight. Just like now I'm like, obviously not. But back then I was like, if I eat this meal, I am going to put on everything again. All my hard work this week's going to be gone, etc., etc. And stepping on the scale like the next few days, like the next day, yes, it would spike. And like there's so many different reasons for that you can't have gained fat that like from that meal, like, but it, you know, I ate a bit later than I usually would. I ate probably more than I usually would, like a normal sized portion than I usually would. I ate or it's more like water retention, etc., all these different things. And then seeing the next few days after that, seeing it go back down to normal was like, okay, it gave me like, right, okay, and it gave me reassurance, and it helped me be able to eat out or eat a meal, and before, instead of panicking, being like, yes, it'll spike tomorrow, but the next few days it'll go back to normal. Like once I get back on track, it will. So in a way, it helped me understand and not fear putting on weight and not fear that. But I then would stop then. I wouldn't do it like continuously, because especially now that I delete my Fitness Pal and stuff like that, my weight does fluctuate quite a lot. So I try and not look at it and notice other things, like how am I feeling, how do I feel in myself, how's my energy, like how is my performance in the gym. I was saying earlier, like I've started more like CrossFit style workouts now that focus a lot more on performance-based goals, which has been great for me now. And like, you know, I just want to lift heavier, I want to do better, I want to compete with the people next to me, you know, and myself. And that comes from not wanting to be as small as possible and not being obsessed with the scales.
I was only having this conversation with a girl, Kate, the other day, who was on the podcast, and what I was saying to her, what I really like about CrossFit style classes, they don't have any mirrors. And I think that's like a really important thing, especially for someone who was with disordered eating and stuff like that. Hold on, we'll cut that. Who's that? All right, is he? Yeah, you run out there and see what the story is. We'll just continue. Sorry, what I was saying is that a good thing about CrossFit is that there's no mirrors. Yeah. And especially for, if you're coming from that background where you even touched on where, you know, you would pick yourself apart in the mirror and stuff like that. Like, so like that's a really helpful characteristic of a training gym for someone who is recovering from something like that.
Yeah, 100%. I actually didn't think about that until you said it. And I haven't looked in the mirror in I don't know how long. Yeah. And it was only I went back into a commercial gym there recently, and I was back to looking in the mirror, and I was like, God, I feel like I haven't like looked at myself in so long. But I've noticed that my strength has been increasing, and I've noticed I'm hitting PBs and stuff like that has been. So it's amazing, and especially coming from a dance background as well, where whole studio is mirrors.
Yeah, you're constantly looking at yourself.
Yeah,
constantly
exactly,
picking yourself
and
apart.
like little leotards and stuff, and that's really hard. Yeah, so it is nice not focusing on looking at yourself.
Yeah.
And having different goals.
And having performance-based goals. And like you always used to say to me, focusing on what your body can do rather than what your body looks like.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And like what you want your body to do, especially with the clients that you have in the School of Fitness, like they're moms and stuff, and they want to like play with their kids, and they want to have the energy to keep going. And I know I can't speak from experience, but I'm sure it's exhausting having children. And they need to be able to take care of these children, take care of themselves, like cook, clean, all the different things, take care of them, collect them, drop them, and want to play with them as well without being totally exhausted. And they're the kind of goals that are more important than what you look like in the mirror.
Yeah. You want to be able to perform.
Memories. You want to make memories. Yeah. Live your life.
With disordered eating behaviours, obviously a close link to that is poor body image. What are some of the characteristics of someone who has poor body image, or some of the things that you noticed when you were going through it?
Yeah, I think projection. I think that's what I like now that I'm older, looking back, when I was in those days, I'm like, the people that did comment on our bodies and made comments and all that, I think they were going through their own body image issues, and to be so focused on bodies and talk about it so much, I'm like, you must have had your own, or you must be very preoccupied with your body that you keep talking about it and putting it onto us. And I think you hear that every day, like, people comment on bodies, or they're very negative about their own bodies. You'll hear like, oh God, I couldn't wear that, I couldn't wear what you're wearing, or stuff like that. I hate that, because like, you could, like, it's just your own negative self-talk. Or people that comment on like what you're eating, like, when you're you're gonna eat all of that, Jesus, I couldn't, like, I think that's someone projecting their own relationship with food onto someone else, and that's, I think, like the telltale signs that someone's having their own struggles.
So for you, what were some of the, I suppose we kind of literally just touched on it, but what were some of the strategies or things that you found was helpful to improve your overall body image?
Okay, so looking in the mirror and saying nice things about yourself. So hard. It's so difficult. Even now I will look in the mirror and be like, oh. Yeah. Even this morning I did it. I was like, oh. And like, but I can catch it now, and I'm aware of how I'm being, and I'm aware of how unhelpful that is, and how it's only going to get worse from there. If I see one flaw, I'm going to be like, Jesus, and this as well, and this as well. Whereas, when you've just done like a workout and you've had a pump, and you can see like, oh, is that like a little, and then you're like, and wait a minute, is that a hamstring coming through? Is that, and you notice more and more little like good things about yourself. It's being aware and catching it, but it's so hard.
Well, we have a tendency to be more negative than we do
yes.
positive, don't we?
Yeah,
so it does take effort.
It's completely like, it's a rewiring, isn't it? Yeah, and it's like writing out nice things about yourself, and like, that's what I would say to anybody as well who's like going to do dance or any kind of performing or anything where modeling or anything where their body is their career, it is their job, is to like have something on hand that when you are feeling negative, or when you are going through a time where maybe you're comparing yourself, or you're judging yourself, or you're upset with yourself or your body, is to like look at this and write out the things that are like nice about yourself, what you like about yourself, that aren't necessarily to do with your body, to do with your mind, to do with who you are as a person, how you are around your friends, what kind of a daughter you are, what kind of a sister you are, partner you are, and having that to turn to just try and keep the positive as much as you can, even if in that moment you can't see it, just like having that continuously in your head, I think it'll make a huge difference.
Yeah, that's really good advice. And do you have any other advice for, let's say, any young women who are about to kind of embark and start a career in the dance industry?
Yeah, I would say you need to find an inner confidence, an inner like practice, an inner self-love that you can hold on to when someone external is like saying things to you. It's about finding that. I didn't have that at 19, and it's so hard at that age. And I think
it would be hard for any 19-year-old.
Exactly, yeah. And I'm hoping now, like, I know that like TikTok and social media and everything, people talk very negatively about it, but there are there's lots of awareness now about mindfulness, meditations, self-love practices, morning routines to make you feel good. Like there is a lot of promotion of that I didn't see when I was that age. So I'm hoping that they, like at 19 now, they're starting to implement these like healthy habits that are, you know, waking up in the morning and saying affirmations and stuff like that. Even that would make a huge difference. And talking positively about yourself and finding that that place you can go to or something you can turn to when someone else is like giving you that negative talk, that you can like go and block them out without taking it and personally and without, I suppose, I don't know, like I suppose without being impressionable, but at 19 you are. But yeah, find a practice, meditate, switch off. Yeah, just try not to get caught up in it, as easy it is to say.
Yeah.
And like, you know, you go to shows now. I've been to so many shows lately where the cast is so diverse. And I do think it's changing in the performance. Like when I'm looking on stage, I'm like, gosh, they all have different bodies. They're all different shapes and sizes. And I only noticed that because of where because of where I've come from. But like everyone else is like, my God, their voice, my God, how they acted, like, wow, they really were the character. Like people don't go to look at their bodies or judge their bodies. But the audition process and all this, and there's still a lot of, like there was an audition a while ago where they were all waiting outside the dance studio, and before they'd even gotten into the room to do the dance, the casting director came along and cut anybody over a size 10.
Really?
Cut them, gone home. Like they weren't, like there's still so many.
So do you think the problem really comes from the people kind of at the top in terms of who's looking after these kids and judging them? And
I think it's like a generation thing, the way how they were trained, and back in the day it was about how you looked, and it was like they were only casting a certain build, and they're just continuing that on and projecting that. But I'm hoping now, and again, TikTok, I've seen so many people who've gone to all these huge colleges in London and performing arts colleges talking about their experiences and what they've been commented on and showing pictures of what they look like, and how, just to show how ridiculous it is that their bodies were commented on. So I do think it's becoming, there hopefully will be some sort of a movement, and hopefully like I teach now, so I'm hoping like teachers and stuff will have, you know.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you, because you're still teaching dance, aren't you?
I teach dance, yeah.
So that's something that you could literally implement in terms of your knowledge around improving people's relationship with food and body image.
Exactly.
And also still incorporating that into the dance arts.
Exactly, and like, you know, making sure that they all know how gorgeous they are and constantly are like finding their self-love and stuff like that, like so that when they do, or if they do go on to it, that they have this inner, no, I'm gorgeous, like I'm me, like, you know, and stuff like that. Or even like turning them away from the mirror and stuff like that has been, you know, they don't need to look in the mirror all the time, like if you just get them to look the other way, you know, it's stuff like that, it's beneficial. And yeah, I think there hopefully will be a movement now in like the next generation of performers and college lecturers for that change how it is.
Yeah. Okay, I have two last questions for you, all right? Second last one. So for anyone who might be watching or listening to this, let's say they're a parent or a young girl at the moment, where could they go if they realised that they do have some disorderly behaviours? What kind of support, where could they reach out, do you think? What would be your suggestion?
I think I've heard Bodywise is amazing. I wish that's where I would go now if that was, I've heard so many people have gone there and found them to be brilliant. So that's where I would go. And I suppose finding therapy, going to therapy, going to counselling, and because it's like sometimes it's not even to do with how they look. Sometimes it's like inner things going on, and like we can like for me, like I turn to food for control, and I'd control my food when other things feel out of control. Like that's kind of that was kind of part of mine. And just seeing if you can get to talk, and it's hard because it's so expensive and it's really hard to get, and it's also hard finding the right therapist for you. Like it is a process, and when you're struggling, these kind of things are really hard to do. Finding someone that you feel really comfortable talking to, and going and finding help.
Is so obviously it is expensive to get this kind of help if you do it privately. Is there public and funded places that they can go in Ireland that you've heard of?
I think so, and I think there is ways. I haven't done it
There's not a lot
I
of...
do think there is some, but again, like I don't know. I feel like it should be. It needs to be.
Well, if you don't know, I'm sure most people don't know.
Exactly.
Do you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
it needs to be. It needs to be different. Yeah, it needs to be more
More light
talked
shed on
about,
it.
and even in schools, there needs to be someone there because I think like disordered eating it seems to be getting younger and younger.
Yeah.
I've heard it getting younger and younger, and comments on bodies being like like you're a child, like you're, you know, it needs to be in schools. It needs to be talked about there. I think nutrition needs to be brought into schools, like health, not fat loss,
weight loss, health,
not low calorie options. Like actual health needs to be talked about way more.
That's the problem, isn't it? People associate that because sometimes for some people losing weight improves their overall health markers, but then it gets manipulated to think that weight loss and health are in the same bracket when they're not.
And even like things for I think mental health needs to be like what's going on in your head needs to be worked on so much. It's not all about like, because like there's so many different things you can do to change your body. There's so many different places you can go for that, but you need to really work on what's going on in here as well. It's not just the outside. You need to work on the inside, and then that'll change the outside. That'll change how you view the outside. That'll change, you know, like when you're angry at yourself, when you're upset with yourself, you're never going to see any progress. You're never going to see any changes. You're just going to hate yourself more and more. Whereas when you love yourself, or even like yourself, or accept yourself even, then you start to see positive changes, if you do want any changes at all, or you start to just like yourself as you are and accept yourself, and then just enjoy whatever you're doing. If you're playing a sport, enjoy it. If you're dancing, you just go and enjoy it. If you're in the gym, doing your performance goals, seeing how heavy you can lift, like stuff like that, your form getting better, getting invested in that, like looking at your videos and stuff, rather than
Picking yourself apart.
like just going to punish yourself. Yeah.
Okay, and then the last question I'll leave you with, and then I'll stop hounding you. So, if you could meet Roisin from 19, who was probably going through all this, and you could talk to her, coach her now, from where you are now, what would you say to her?
What would I say to her? I think I would get her to just, even once every day, maybe first thing in the morning, say something nice to herself. Yeah. I think 19-year-old Roisin was really harsh on herself. So cruel to herself, so mean. Talk to yourself like you're talking to a friend. Just be nice to yourself, and that'll make all the difference. That'll get what you want. Like, you're not going to hate yourself to loving yourself, you know, you have to.
And it sounds like simple advice, but it's probably the most difficult thing to do.
So difficult, yeah. That's why I say even just one thing first thing in the morning. Like, I think sometimes we're like, okay, we need a full morning routine, we need to say 10 things we like about ourselves, then we need to journal, then we need to do this, then we need to do that. Like, you know, just one thing every day. Start with that and notice a difference there, and then you can build on it. Yeah.
I think it's a really important message to give out. If anyone who is struggling with these kind of behaviours and stuff like that and want to reach out for you to ask you questions or anything like that, where could they find you?
My Instagram is my_little_journal notes.
Deadly. And I'll put it in the show notes as well. Roisin, thanks so much for
Thank
coming.
you.